welcome to the channel. I have been gone a while and I'm back now, and you know, every few videos I say I'm back. That is because I actually have a job doing 3D, which is amazing job. I use browser every day, so making videos when I come home for you guys is a little daunting. But every now and then I get it together where I can come and show you some things, and hopefully you guys will stick with me. Thank you for making my channel grow over time. But it's time to ramp it up. We have 11,000 subscribers, but I know some of you are still not subscribed. But let's get this content going. I am going to use this pattern. And to be honest, I am not sure where I got this pattern from. So if this is your pattern and you recognize it, just know that I am evaluating it for educational purposes. Okay, I am not critiquing anybody's work, but I am here to show you guys what it's like to receive a pattern and have to fit it in 3D. There are some nuances and things that pattern makers are privy to, just working in the industry, and where to look for things and where to notice things in 3D that are not 100% precise, meaning the way that you would do them for actual production. So let's jump into this file. This is Joan. She is my personal avatar, and I will provide, I'm starting my Gumroad journey. I've been looking for ways to give you guys content that's easily accessible, and I landed on Gumroad. I did Patreon for a while and I had to shut that down just because I want to be able to offer you contents and uploads with my videos. However, the delivery system is a little bit, you know, you have to make a decision. So I've done that, but we're going to look at this pattern for a few different reasons. Okay, so there are some things that you notice right away. Okay, jumping in, we notice that she's got pulling across the bust. She's got some drag lines here. If you turn her around, she's got this kind of bunching up here, which we will definitely fix that. Her pleats are kind of winging out. So that's not good. That's not a good sign of a well-made pleat fold. And also, just on body, she's not balanced. So we can see that from the front and from the back, she's not balanced. But there are a few other issues I want to say with this thing, that with this pattern, that we can just take note of as people who want to make things for production. These are some of the things that you have to look for and consider when correcting a pattern. So let's get started. Let's look at our 2D pattern. So we have a waistband and a collar, and we have some cuffs here. Now these all should have some type of fabric on them to keep them stiff. Actually, the cuff looks like it's a soft cup, but if you notice, as you click on the different pattern pieces, you can see them displayed in your 3D window, and you can see just exactly how they affect the overall garment. If we go ahead and look at the sleeve, we'll notice that the cuff on this arm is actually placed over the sleeve. However, on this arm, the cuff is under the sleeve. So that's something that we want to pay attention to as far as how our garment is put together in 3D. Also, you'll notice that the button spacing is a little off. So you've got a lot of room here between the button spacing, and it's not really even. I'm sure if we go to measure the distance of the buttons that they will not be even. I want to say the baselines on the garment seem to be correct, but I'm going to show you something that I always notice with different patterns from people that they have a tendency to do with the button placement and with the actual button extension. So we're going to see how that fixes the garment as well. So with this collar, we see that it actually has notches, which is great, and everything can be seen, you know, to where it's placed. Actually, where do these notches go? That'd be interesting to see where the notches end up, because they shouldn't be here. Okay, because I would think that the notches here would be a little bit closer, so that's something peculiar also. This notch here is actually for the sleeve, the center of the sleeve, since this is a forward shoulder. You can zoom in there. So this notch should be matched up with this sleeve. However, I see that there are 2 points here. I'm not sure that I need those 2 points. There should only be 1 point with the notch. So that makes me wonder if it's sewn properly there. And we can check the sewing in just a minute. Okay. We can also tell that there is some kind of puckering applied to the sleeve, and this should be, like I said, on the outer. So one is on the outer. We're going to see how that affects the actual sleeve. One is being on the outside and one being on the inside. We're going to see how that works out. Everything here looks to be placed correctly. However, I do notice that usually on the front, there is 2 notches on the front as well as 2 notches on the back. So it kind of makes me wonder, there should only be 1 notch for the front and 2 notches for the back. You can see that they follow that here with the top, 1 notch being on the front, 2 notch on the back. Same thing with the sleeves, 1 on the front, 2 notches on the back. This is to help the pattern maker know which is the front and the back if things are not labeled. Okay, so speaking of labeling, let's check the names for these pieces, because I see here it says fabric 1 and fabric 1. So that's not correct either. So there are some naming conventions need to be applied. And now let's just take a look at what these patterns name number 6. So you want to make sure that your patterns are named properly. So I'm going to put you guys on pause while I name all the pieces. Hold on. Okay, so now we've got the back of the garment. Here is where you rename it. Short back right, short back left. So just make sure that you have everything, every piece named. No matter how small the pieces are, it's going to help you in the long run if you have to go into production to not miss anything, to make sure that everything has its... So another thing I want you to identify when it comes to shapes and pattern shapes is usually a symmetrical thing happening front to back, but not always. So sometimes you can have something like here, the sweep is a lot more narrow in the front than it is in the back. And that is a fit aesthetic, right? So that is an aesthetic to the styling of the garment. It's not really, I want to say not a fit aesthetic, that is a design aesthetic. It really does not affect the fit too much if that is what the designers have decided that they want. One thing I will note to you that these baselines are supposed to line up. And I notice here on the side that these baselines on the side here are not really lined up. The shorts look great, but this top needs a little bit of work, and we're just going to do a little bit. So this is how you are looking at the garment. I'm not pulling anything. This is the original state of the 3D file just opened. And I'm just scanning. I'm looking around. I'm looking to see what is going on with this garment. Basically right here it's telling me that there's not enough chest. It's right here trying to make a dart. All this fullness wants to go into a dart, but that's not the style of the garment. So we're not going to just make a dart willy-nilly just for fit purposes if it's fixable. So let's see if we can fix it without adding a dart. And there's a little, you know, just a way to do that. Again, this is a shoulder forward. right? We can see that the shoulder is forward. Hold on, I'm gonna get here, right? You can see that the shoulder is forward. The shoulder seam is where the sleeve head line would be. That would be the natural shoulder. So the back is actually falling front. It's kind of bizarre that the back is falling front, but there's so much excess down here at the back. Your side seams should match up. So now it's time to like say, okay, well, what are these seams doing? Let's make sure that we have good seam alignment. And we can just take the measurement by just clicking on the line. So we have 4.803 and 4.803. Great. We have 15.638 and 15.617. Very slightly off. We have a 90-degree angle here, but we do not have a 90-degree angle here. This is a 96-degree angle. So there's some opportunity there to reduce some of the angle, but if we don't have to, we don't have to. Okay, so we can realign the buttons. We're going to get to that point, and also figure out how much the shoulder is forward, and it looks like about 3/4. So it's a little bit more than 3/4. And these are things that you have to be aware of. This should also be a 90-degree angle, and it is 97. So that tells me that there is some room to improve the actual armhole shape. Okay, because usually armhole is at least for 1/2 inch or something like that, should be a little bit better at a 90-degree angle for a good fitting garment. And you know, if you're not bored and you haven't turned me off by now, this is how you actually look at a 3D pattern before you even try to fit it. So now let's get into fixing some of these fit things and see where we can take this garment to the next level. Okay, so first things first, I want to go ahead and balance this short. So what I'm going to do is take the jacket, highlight it, right click, and I'm going to hide, sorry, that right click, the piece on here, edit piece, and right click on it, and I'm going to hide the 3D pattern. First, I'm going to deactivate the pattern, only the pattern, and then I'm going to hide it in 3D. So when I hit simulate, the only thing that's going to be affected is what's going on with these shorts. I'm going to simulate, and we can see that it kind of opens up a little bit. We're no longer limited by the outer garment that's hanging over the shorts. So now we can see exactly how it falls, and we can make some adjustments. So one of the things when you're dressing a garment, it's important to have the garment balanced. So I can see that there's some things going on here. So I want to go ahead and get a balanced placement using some of the tools that can help you balance a garment when you're fitting it. So here is we're going to use the edit measure tool, but we're actually going to, in this group, there is a circumference measure on the avatar. So I'm going to use that to make a line on the avatar very close to where the actual garment is. Very close to where the natural waist is. So we can see that her waist, the garment is falling down from her waist. So I'm just going to go ahead and balance it to the waist so that we can see if the garment is actually balanced. I like to do this. Click on these two lines and then at the side so I can get a good read on where the waist is. Okay, so now there's also a tool in that group. They can go ahead and attach. I want to attach to the avatar measure tape. So now I can take some pieces of my garment and I can go ahead and attach it. So I want to go ahead and click on this and then click to where I want to attach, and it will just go ahead and attach it there. So you click on the line that you created, and then you click on the part of the garment that you want to align to that thing, and then it just goes up. And the back seemed to be not that bad. We still need some alignment. And then here, and then here. All right, so now let's have a look at the balance of the garment as it is on the body. So this is one way of seeing if your pattern is actually balanced to the natural waistline, which this is not bad. It still, however, looks like it's hiking up, but because our model's waistline is where it is placed, we're going to take that and say like, okay, like this is what we want. I actually think there's some opportunity there to align it a little straighter, but we're going to leave that as it is for now because the hem is actually straight and it's at the natural waistline of the avatar. If you want it to be lower, or if you have a specific place that you want to put the you want to align the garment to, so maybe it's not all the way up here at the natural waist, maybe there's another place you want to do a different measurement, right? So now let's see naturally where she falls. And then I can keep that balanced. I'm going to ignore the front and just leave the front there. What I will do though is freeze this waistband. Freeze it so that it does not move and we can use it as a steady, continuous point of balance. Now, without all these lines, the pleats are pulling it down quite a bit. So I'm just going to unfreeze this for 1 second, and I want to pull this up to be where I visually think it should be. One of the hardest things in fitting is making sure that you have this thing exactly where you want it to be, and I think I can live with this. And I hope you can too. All right, so is the pattern balance a problem? There's also a way that you can tell that. And I think it's saying, if I can see the grid, 3D grid on. Show grid. Oh, my grid properties. So here's a way in the window that you can tell if your garment is balanced, right? I can hold shift and turn the garment. I'm sorry, control. Nope. So it is slightly hiking at the back. But then it's dipped down here at the back. So that tells me that there is some opportunity to increase the back rise. And let's just do that for now. But it doesn't look like much. I want to say 1/2 inch, 3/4. 1/2 inch, 3/4. I could measure that. Let's increase the rise 1/2 inch. This is not going to do too much of a pattern. I don't like the shape of this either. But we're not going to mess with it. Alright, so I'm going to go up slightly and I want to do 0.5. Alright, and then I want to take these lines. Just get them a little smoothed out. So I don't mess with too much more of what's going on in the garment. I'm going to simulate. And I believe I need to unfreeze this in order for it to work. Do what I want to do. Maybe 1/2 inch was not enough. Let me hold this with tech. One thing is I can never figure out where these tools are because they move so much. Alright, I'm just going to hold that up there because it's just dropping too much. So it looks like it's going to be a little bit more than 1/2 inch to get this level down. So maybe there's a whole inch, and maybe I only need to do half there and bring down the half here. Wow. It tells me that there are a lot of points on this pattern because I'm getting all these curved lines, which there are. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of these lines here. I'm gonna get rid of some of these curved lines, not too many. So these are changes that I'm making that are not going to really make or break the pattern. I just want it to fit better. I don't want to rearrange the whole thing. Now, looks like a better shape. Let us see. It looks like it already moved it a bit. Let me just make sure I put this back to where I want it to be on the grid. Simulate. And it's a little bit better. A little bit better. But now I have this thing coming out. All right, so we're not going to do too much more with that. But this is what you can do in order to see things a little bit more clearly, symmetrically, and make the choices that you need to make in order for the garment to look a little bit better. All right. And like I said, you have to have your own parameters in place to where you want your garment to sit, etc. I'm going to go back and freeze this again while I have it in place where I want it. Now we can talk about the top. I'm going to turn off the grid. Yeah, I'm going to get to that back. What's going on here?